Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Chiefs fans, depending on what time you're listening to this podcast. You are listening to Chiefs Central Radio on the Pro Football Central Radio Network. I'm your host, as always, Jason Seidel, and with me, my good friend, my partner in crime, my number two, Chris Kilduff. What's up, Chris?
Not much. Just getting 1 week closer. Now we just have a week away from preseason. Every time we do one of these, it's like that. They need to make like one of the football advent calendars like they do Christmas or something, right? At least get a little piece of candy or something every time a week goes by.
You get a hot wing. You put a hot wing in the advent calendar. Pull out a hot wing every day closer.
I don't know how if that would pass FDA, with hot wings and paper, but especially not here. It's like 100 degrees today, man.
Have you eaten the chocolate out of an advent calendar? I don't know how that barely passes for candy. I don't know how that passes the FDA.
Have you ever seen the movie Bad Santa where he eats all the candy out of the advent calendar? Then he's just putting like paper clips and shit in there. Like it's so funny.
Yeah, it's a good flick. Yeah, there's a couple parts of that movie that are like definitely not repeatable, but yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one to watch any time of the year. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be Christmas. So, yes, we are 1 week closer to the preseason start. Actually, just about what do we got? 9 days left. It's Tuesday night as we record this. So, Chiefs play their first preseason game. They're home against the Cincinnati Bengals. So, yeah, I mean they're getting close. They're getting close to being back home at Arrowhead and getting our first glimpse at what they look like. Are you going to pay the $20 and get the preseason package so you can watch the preseason game?
Well, you know what? I might do that this year, but I get them anyways because they're on NFL Network. So they play them all on NFL Network anyway. So that's what I've always done.
But I'm a dork, man. I got to watch it live. Like, I can't wait till they replay it at 3 a.m. on, Saturday morning or something,
Well, a lot of the times with preseason games anyways, like, if I can't, because their schedule is all over the place. If I can't watch it, I just DVR it anyway. So it kind of works, because sometimes they play those games randomly, like during the day, and I have meetings and different crap. So, but I definitely want to pick up like Rewind and some of that stuff that you're talking about because that seems like a great way to go back over footage and.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and like I said, the preseason's coming up. It's coming up quick. We've got this show, and then next week we'll be previewing our first game of the 2014 season. Albeit, it's a preseason game, but I mean, we'll still be looking at who we're going to be watching, and
that's huge. Though. That's the preseason allows you to actually see a lot of those guys that might be in there doing a lot of that, the extra stuff, like we really get to see that wide receiver battle. We really get to see what's going on at tight end, Right now it's so speculation, but the preseason's where you really get to see those guys, prove that they got the spot.
And that's, to me, that's what's fun about preseason, and we'll talk about this a lot more in depth next week, I think, but, what you were just saying is that, those battles, those guys that are really fighting and clawing for a job. We know Jamal Charles can play football. We know that Dwayne Bowe and Alex Smith and Tom Bahali and Justin Houston and Eric Berry, we know those guys know how to play football and play it well. Obviously, they're Pro Bowlers. They're on the top 100, players of 2013. Those guys know how to ball. It's these guys that are fighting and clawing for a spot on that 53-man roster. Those are the guys. When it comes to preseason, yeah, I love to watch that first series to see how well our number ones do. But even more importantly, I like to watch games into the fourth quarter when a lot of people are turning off preseason games. That's when I enjoy watching it because I want to see how well Aaron Murray or Tyler Bray are going to throw the ball to guys like Frankie Hammond Jr. and, some of these other guys that their names are escaping me right now. But I mean, and that's the thing. It's like these guys that we've never heard of. I want to see if Cairo Santos can kick a 58-yard field goal. That's what I want to see. So I'm totally with you when it comes to that. And in that, I just got home actually yesterday. Well, late Sunday night, early Monday morning. It was quite the adventure to Kansas City as I made my trip up there for Chiefs camp. Let me tell you something, man. To 850-mile one-way road trip with a wife and two little girls to go watch football practice for 2 days in the middle of summer. What the hell was I thinking?
I don't know. I'm sure that's wild, but at least you got the wife and kids that'll take the road trip with you.
This is true. This is true. Well, and you know my wife, and fans of the show that obviously don't know Chris and I personally. Chris has been friends with my wife for a long time, actually, but he knew my wife before I did, and so and that's how Chris and I met, was through my wife. So she wasn't necessarily a big football fan when we met, but because of me, she is a diehard Chiefs fan, and so when we kind of talked about let's do this and take this trip and everything, she was all 100% on board. So yeah, we left last Thursday and drove about 7 hours to Oklahoma City from San Antonio, stayed the night, got up Friday morning, drove the rest of the way into Kansas City, stopped at Kansas City, went to a place called Kansas Sampler, which for those of you local to Kansas City know, Rally Sports, Kansas Sampler, and Chris, basically it's a sporting goods store that sells nothing but Kansas and Missouri team stuff. So you're talking Chiefs, Royals, the Kansas State Jayhawks, the Mizzou Tigers. That's all that they sell in their store is Kansas and Missouri themed memorabilia. And so, but it's a great place to go to get swag. I mean, picked up a couple of T-shirts and whatnot, but they've got everything in there that you could possibly want.
Kansas Sampler. I thought you were going to a barbecue place.
No, that would be Missouri. Yeah, that would be Missouri Sampler. Missouri is where the barbecue's at, so on the Missouri side of the border. But so great folks there at Kansas Sampler. And then so shout out to them if they're listening. Which they were tweeting me. It was pretty funny because I couldn't remember the name of the place because we had gone there last year when we went up to Kansas City to watch them destroy the Raiders in Arrowhead Week 6. But we had gone there. That was where somebody recommended that we go, and so. But I couldn't remember the name, and so I just shot it out on Twitter. I was like, "Hey, what's the name of the place? It's something, and I got like 100 responses, and then the Kansas Sampler people started tweeting me, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, I got up to St. Joe, where the camp is, and it's right there off the highway. You can see it on the College University big arrowhead painted on the grass. Pretty badass, and then got to the hotel or whatever. And then the debacle started. I lost my phone. Set it down. We had to run to Walmart and to get some Sharpies so we could get autographs. And
what were you setting your phone down in Walmart for?
Well, I set it on the cart. This is literally what happened. We're walking through Walmart, and there's a guy with a Raiders hat on walking through Walmart in St. Joe. So I picked up my phone to tweet out, just saw a guy in a Raiders hat in St. Joe, not too smart, hashtag whatever, and it died because the battery was almost dead. And I went, crap. So I set it down in the cart next to that I'm pushing my little girls right there in the cart. And we go out in the parking lot, and we're loading the kids and the crap and everything else into the car, and I literally left it sitting right there in the cart, and away we went. So didn't realize it until we got back to the hotel. Anyway, long story short, go back to Walmart, the phone's gone. Some toothless hillbilly in St. Joe is walking around with my Galaxy S3. So didn't have a phone all weekend, so that was a pain in the ass. But anyway, on to the good stuff. We get to practice on Saturday, and I'm not kidding you. I mean, you talk about the sea of red. It's not quite like walking into Arrowhead, but it was damn close. I mean, there is red everywhere. And people are on the bleachers, and they're up on the grass, and I mean, you don't really know what to expect until you go and you check it out. And what I mean by that is there are literally 2 practice fields side by side. And there's stuff going on both fields. You've got linebackers over here, and you've got running backs over here, and you got O-linemen going against D-linemen over here, and you got, quarterbacks throwing routes to wide receivers over here, and D-lines down here doing some things. And about halfway through the practice, here comes Suckup, Santos, Colquitt, and Gafford. The 4 special teams guys come walking. They've been chilling in the locker room for an hour, and then they finally come out and they're kicking. And I mean, but you don't know what to watch. It's so kind of overwhelming at first that you just don't know what to look at. And then they go into 11 on 11, and that's really where you get a chance to see kind of what's going on, and they have a little scrimmage. So, yeah, very, very cool. But I'll tell you what, your boy, DeAnthony Thomas.
I told you, man.
The fastest human being I've ever seen. Not only that, this kid, let me tell you something. This kid is going to have people saying Dexter McCluster who by week 3. I guarantee you. As long as he could stay healthy, I'm talking, yeah, he's awesome. So who else did you want to hear about? Because you and I haven't actually had a chance to talk about my adventure to camp until now.
Yeah, not a lot. I mean, just I guess just your general overtake. I mean, I definitely was obviously interested in him, but like we talked about last week, that wide receiver battle. Especially when you were talking about seeing that 11 on 11, and I was reading up some of the different stats on how they were doing some different blitzing techniques with, you got so much pass rushing going on there on the defense now, how we're going to kind of utilize all that.
Yeah, it's tough to evaluate pass rushing at camp, and the reason I say that is because obviously they're not allowed to touch the quarterback. So you can kind of see, there was a couple plays where, either Tamba or Houston were in the backfield like that, where it would have been a sack had they been allowed to hit the quarterback. But for the sake of getting the practice, they allow the play to progress, even though it would have ended in a sack, if that makes sense. So that one's kind of tough to evaluate. But I'll tell you what, one guy that looked good, and not somebody that you and I have actually talked about, is Frankie Hammond Jr. Real fast guy. He's got some speed, and he made probably one of the best plays that I saw the 2 days that we were there. We went Saturday and Sunday. And that was, he literally caught probably a 7 or 8 yard slant right across the middle and hit those afterburners, man, and juked out 3 different guys and was down the field. I mean, it was pretty impressive. And the defense was after him full speed and they couldn't catch him. So, and that wasn't the only thing that he caught. He caught a couple balls. Travis Kelce, let me tell you something, brother. If that guy stays healthy, yeah, we've got something there. And Fasano looked good. Fasano looked real good. Fasano was catching the ball well and turning upfield and moving real well. In fact, Saturday after practice, they all come up and sign autographs, and Fasano kind of came over to where we were standing and waiting, and without really saying that I had a conversation with him, because I won't say that. I mean, he's standing there and people are hollering his name and he's signing stuff, but he was literally right in front of me, and I said, "Hey, man," how you feeling? The leg's feeling good? And he said, "Yeah, man, they're feeling really good." So whether that's just him just kind of dismissing my question as get this fan out of my face, or telling the truth, but he did. He looked really good. He was moving well. But yeah, Kelce made some great catches. He's got that size where he's a good big target that Alex can find in the middle of the field. He seemed to be able to really find those seams well. So yeah, offense on the offense side of the ball, they look good. Obviously, Charles is Charles. I mean, every time that he got the ball, the fewest yards I watched him pick up was 5 or 6. I think that was the minimum. DAT, Black Mamba, Thomas, he had a huge play, caught a little 3-yard swing pass out of the backfield, and hit that speed, and that one got a pretty big pop from the crowd because he just really kind of showcased how fast he truly is.
Well, can you imagine once we start, I'm sure it's at the top Andy Reid's playbook, but the first chance we start getting to run some double screens with him and Jamal Charles out of the backfield,
it's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. Imagine them lining up in maybe a wishbone formation with Charles, Nile Davis, and Thomas, all 3 of them in the backfield. Something like that, or maybe Charles motions out to the slot. Thomas motions out to the slot. It's going to be really interesting. Having 3 running backs, and in that, you talk about position battles. I don't see a place really on this team for Cyrus Gray with Thomas on this team. Joe McKnight didn't practice the whole time we were there. He was in shorts and no pads on the sideline doing medicine ball drills and working with the rubber bands on his knees. So I don't know if he's going to be a wash or if he's a guy that they're going to hang on to for a while. Heard a lot of hype about Weston Dressler before we headed into camp, and he made a couple of plays, but nothing that really stands out in my mind as that guy really is a playmaker. Another big play that we saw, Smith extending a play, rolling out of the back or out of the pocket, and I mean hit AJ Jenkins on a 40-yard strike right down the sideline.
Yeah,
that was very, 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 very nice. I mean, again, tough to evaluate. Would the defense have gotten to him? You know, they allowed the play to continue. He was definitely flushed out of the pocket kind of thing. And rolling to his left and as a right-handed thrower, not the easiest throw to make. So, you know, regardless, you look at it and you say, yeah, good job, Alex. I mean, a great catch, AJ Jenkins, too.
Did you get to stand close to Demetrius Harris, see how big he is?
He's a big dude, yes. Those guys are very big. Although, let me tell you something. Andy Reid, not as big as I thought he was going to be.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, was literally right across the fence from him, gave him a "What's up, coach?" you know, and got one of these in return. Not as big as I thought he was going to be. You know, they say the camera adds, 15 pounds or whatever. In his case, very true. Not nearly as big as I thought he was going to be. He was shorter and not quite as wide. Talked to the owner, Mr. Clark Hunt. He was down there on Sunday. Got to say hi to him. Asked him if he had any job opportunities for a soon-to-be-retired Air Force guy. I don't think he saw the humor in it like I did. General Manager John Dorsey was out on Sunday, walking around. So yeah, I mean, got to see everybody. But Dwayne Bowe looked good. You know, but as he has, I guess, at most of camp, he's been looking really good. He signed my jersey. I was pretty happy about that. I've got Bowe ink on my Bowe jersey, and then wasn't able to get Smith's signature on Saturday. Right towards the end of the autograph period, the skies opened up and it started pouring rain, lightning and thunder, and so they kind of ushered all the players back up to the locker room. And then Sunday, we weren't sure if the quarterbacks were going to be signing autographs because they do it by position group, and it was receivers and D-backs. And found out a very valuable trick, and it's nice to have kids along for the ride because by throwing my 4-year-old daughter Isabel up on my shoulders, and she had wanted to say hi to Alex Smith the whole day, she sees him and she goes, and I'm not kidding you, she goes, "Alex Smith! Alex Smith!" And he came right over to us, waved at her. I said, "Baby, what do we say when Alex Smith does good?" And she gave me her best Mitch Holthus impression. "Touchdown, Kansas City!" And yeah, Alex signed my jersey, so I got a Bowe signature and a Smith signature out of the deal. And then yeah, thumbs up for Smith, man. He literally went down the entire fence and signed every single thing that fans put in front of him. He was probably out there for a good hour or more, but he didn't have to be.
Yeah, he seems like a good guy.
So I mean, he looked sharp. You know, obviously there was some mistakes, but that's what practice is for. You know, you read some of these guys that are putting stuff out there, you know, and they expect the offense and the defense to be operating flawlessly right now, and it's not realistic. I mean, this is the time I want guys to drop passes. This is the time I want guys to run the wrong route because, you know, this is the time to learn from those mistakes. So all in all, man, great experience. We left right after practice on Sunday, 13 hours to get back to San Antonio, drove straight through. You know, pretty much was exhausted. But yeah, watched Cairo Santos and Ryan Suckup kick it out, both of them, and both of them went 5 for 5. So, you know, it's kind of a wash there on that roster battle. I don't know. That's going to come down to seeing what they can do in a game situation, I think. I really do. I really think that it's going to come down to what they can do in a game type situation because I don't see them making a decision just based off of practice. So yeah, I'm thinking that's pretty much that was pretty much it. Like I said, really impressed with Kelsey. Really impressed with Fasano. I think that Chase Daniel is going to be fighting for his job as the backup. I really do. I think that with his number that hits the cap, I think that Reid and Dorsey may be looking at going a Smith, Bray, Murray depth chart if Chase doesn't really pick up his game. Which is interesting. You know, a lot of people just kind of thought that Chase Daniel as the backup is a gimme, but I don't see it that way. I really don't. I think
we talked about that, and I was kind of on the same page. I thought that was the way it was probably going to be as well.
Yeah, I really and truly think because they had those other two, the two young guys, Bray and Murray, throwing just as much as Daniel. And generally, if there's not really a quarterback competition, you know what I mean? Like you just they would get a couple of snaps compared to but they were out there just as much as Daniel was, and I really think he's fighting for his job as well. So definitely. Definitely an interesting time. I recommend it to anybody that's in the Kansas City area or St. Joe area, or even if you're not. I mean, make the road trip. It's worth it. So, but not if you're a Raiders fan wearing a Raiders jersey. You watched that video?
Yeah, I actually had to send it out to a couple of my Raider friends that I know that are Raider fans. Not that I have Raider friends, but let's.
Yeah. What'd you think about that? Because the kind of the opinion is mixed on this whole thing. With even in Chiefs Kingdom, people are kind of going back and forth, thinking the guy went too far, that he was an asshole. That I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, it's football. I mean, I think that it's all in good fun. Like, I know it gets serious sometimes and people take it too far, but I think half the fun is the rivals and the trash talk. I mean, I'm one of those guys that I think that's, people like hate on players who trash talk, and it works the same way with fans, but I really think that's an awesome part of the sport. I think the competitiveness with players as well as fans, fandom is a powerful thing. People always say, oh, you're a football fan. Well, people don't realize for a lot of us, like, it's a lifestyle, like it's and so if you're there and you're Kansas City and you're a Raider fan, what else are you going to go do? You're going to go, go down and heckle the Chiefs. I mean, I think it is what it is. I don't think that, we had the same situation in, I was at a Seahawks game a couple years back when they played the Colts, and it was Christmas Eve we played them, and we were down there, and there was Peyton Manning guy with his daughter, and Seahawks fans were just letting them have it. And you kind of feel bad to a point, but if you're going to come to a Seahawks game and you're going to wear a Peyton Manning shirt when they're playing the Colts, you kind of deserve it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. That's what I said too. You've got to be prepared, and that guy, he should have been. When the guy says, name your starting lineup, offense, name your starters on offense, and then he says, too long. If you're going to show up to Chiefs camp in a Raiders jersey, you need to know who the starters on offense are. You need to know that your quarterback's Matt Schaub. You need to know that your running back is whatever cheese ball they've got running the ball for him in Oakland. I don't even know. You know what I mean? You need to know that stuff, because I guarantee you, if I show up to Raiders camp in a Chiefs jersey and they say, who's your starting offensive players, I'm going to be able to rattle them off, because otherwise you just look like an idiot, and that guy looked like an idiot. So, I don't know.
Yeah, but it's one of the things, too. I mean, we always have this argument, because I have a bunch of friends who are diehard football fans, and a lot of them always hate on the casual NFL fan. And I think there's a place for the casual NFL fan. I mean, I don't think everybody has to know every single detail about their team. I mean, I have to be that way because it's the way my brain works. I'm freaking the most obsessive person in the world, and like when I like something, I have to learn everything about it. But I don't think there's anything wrong with you being a fan. And I mean, obviously showing up to another team's camp, is a bit out there. But I don't think that you have to know who your left guard is on your football team and still be a fan of that football team.
But if you're sitting at home, I agree with you. Yeah. But if you're going to be ballsy enough to put on your team's jersey and go to another team's camp, then I think that you have moved past, because I agree with you, there is a very big place in the world for the casual NFL fan, but once you put on a Raiders jersey and go to Chiefs camp, I think you've moved out of that realm of, I'm just a casual football fan with nothing to do on a Saturday afternoon.
Oh, I agree.
I'm gonna go heckle the Chiefs.
Yeah, that's definitely tricky.
Yeah, it was. The video's obviously it's blowing up. And what's funny is I saw it. Well, first I saw it on our on Arrowhead Addict. They had posted it. my former place of employment. But then I actually saw a link to it on a Just Blog Baby, which is the fan-sided Raiders site, which is the Raiders version of Arrowhead Addict. It's called Just Blog Baby. And it's very funny reading the difference in comments. Now, on the Chiefs site, on Addict, there were actually some Chiefs fans that said that the guy went too far, that was heckling the Raiders guy, saying that he was obnoxious and he was, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, I guess maybe it could be perceived that way. I thought it was funny, and I wish that Raiders guy would have come back with something instead of just stood there like a chode. But you go to the Raiders site and it's like, they just completely are like, I mean, horrible, man, talking about how Chiefs fans are inbred, and when mommy and daddy get divorced, will they still be brother and sister? And it's horrible, dude. It's like, and you read this stuff, and I'm just like, wow, man. I mean, there's rivalry, and there's taking it to a whole other level, and that's what these guys are doing. So, yeah, pretty nuts. So, talking about Raiders, not that this is a Raiders show, but Raiders in the news for something else. You and I were just talking about here before, and it actually just broke earlier today, Tuesday, that apparently Raiders owner Mark Davis in discussions to bring the franchise out of Oakland and to my current location, San Antonio, Texas. Pretty interesting.
And at least get you some Chiefs games.
I know. I'd be able. I mean, as long as everything stayed status quo, I get to see the Chiefs once a year when they came to face the San Antonio Raiders, which has kind of an interesting ring to it. And we were talking, it'd be interesting to see if they kept the name Raiders, or if this will even work out. It's funny. I've had this conversation at work with some guys that I work with who are pretty big football fans, and talking about a third Texas franchise. And I think that the state can handle it, and I think that there's definitely this economy, and of course, I'm speaking from being here in San Antonio, is starving for a football franchise. The Spurs are obviously huge here, and them winning the NBA championship this year, they're huger even. But yeah, they're starving for an NFL franchise down here. And I mean, there's definitely, with San Antonio, and then Austin is only about 65, 70 miles away. You've definitely got the population for a fan base. So. But the Raiders are an interesting choice to come here. You've always kind of figured if they were going to leave Oakland, they go back to L.A.
Especially since it's been widely speculated that L.A. has been, really, going for a team. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, second largest city in the country, and they don't have a football team. It's crazy if you think about it. I mean, it really is nuts that that they don't have a team. And meanwhile, the commissioner's saying that London is only 5 years from having a franchise, and you're like, what? Like, why would we go to London when LA doesn't even have a team yet? Like, it just doesn't make sense.
And Vegas has been throwing their card in the mix, too. Vegas, for a while, has been talking about wanting an NFL franchise.
Yeah, that's a weird one, though, because of the whole gambling and sports betting thing. I think that there'll be a franchise in Moscow before there'll be one in Vegas, I mean, personally, just because of the whole betting thing. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, they've definitely made some noise saying, hey, what about us? We'd like a franchise too. So yeah, interesting stuff going on in the news as we push through the preseason. And one thing that you and I didn't talk about doing show prep, but I just kind of thought of, one last kind of thing coming out of camp before we move on is, what do you think about this whole Sean McGrath, the bearded one, not coming back? He's retired.
Well, it makes our tight end choices a little bit easier. I mean, that's the upside to that. But yeah, it makes you kind of wonder. I've heard inklings of, personal issues with some different things or whatever, but, even if he knew he wasn't going to make this team with kind of some of our tight end choices, he's definitely someone that's proven that he could go on a squad and play some ball, so it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of weird. The thing I read, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, but saying that he had lost his love for football, and that's just, to me, that's kind of crazy, like, I mean, I guess to each their own, like you said, personal stuff going on. But, it's funny what you just said, that it makes our tight end choices, because literally when I heard that he was thinking retirement and I was sitting at camp going, man, I can't believe he's not going to be here. That literally I thought to myself, when I tell Chris this, and Chris and I talk about this, that is exactly what he's going to say as well. It makes our choices easier. And it does, because we said we said that it was going to be a hard decision picking between McGrath and Harris, and now, Harris looked good. I mean, he had his shining moments that I saw. He caught some good balls. He dropped a couple too. I won't say that the next son coming of Antonio Gates just yet, or Tony Gonzalez, but I mean he moved well. You can definitely tell he's an athlete, and he caught some good balls. So I really think that as a third string tight end, if they keep three and he's the third one, I mean I definitely made the choice much easier now. You kind of wonder what's going on with McGrath. And obviously, it makes it harder as a fan base because he did become such a fan favorite last year with the beard and just the attitude. And so I don't know. We'll see. Kind of interesting. Yeah, I feel for the guy. Whatever's going on, hope he works through it and wish him the best of luck. Definitely. So, not somebody that you'd pick up on your fantasy roster, but there are several Chiefs out there too, possibly draft as we get into fantasy football season as well. So this is kind of something you wanted to talk about. So
that was an expert crossover, sir.
Did you like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
we have to stop the presses on that one. I just had to commend you.
I have my moments every once in a while. But yeah, this is kind of something you wanted to throw into the show. I think it's a great idea as we move into fantasy football season. My draft is coming up here next Sunday, next Saturday the 9th is when we're doing our football draft. That's
drafting pretty early, sir.
It is, but I'm going to be out of town the last 2 weeks of the preseason. So that was the reason why we picked that early date. Normally we do it either Labor Day weekend or the weekend right before Labor Day, but it just didn't work out this year, so I'm not going to be able to be here. And I'm hosting it. I'm the commissioner of the league this year, so we're doing it here at my place and everything. So I couldn't exactly be like, you guys figure it out, draft for me. I did that one time. I will never ever have somebody draft my team for me again. It's a proxy GM.
Rules. We're like on a 10-year deep league with our little group of people. Like we've been doing it for a minute, and I've been the commissioner. It's been my league forever, and we have just a great time with it. We do the big live draft, and we all know each other really well and can get on each other's nerves really well. So it's pretty fun. But I have totally out rules like no phone drafting, none of this. If you're not going to show, you just don't get a show, man. I can't do that draft for me or over the phone crap.
We do have one guy, because this is a kind of a legacy league as well. But with all of us being military, people leave. So we do have one guy that's not here, and he hasn't been here the last 2 years. And what we've done is we've set a laptop up on a chair for him, so it's like he's there, and he Skypes in. Yeah, he Skypes in. So
I have actually a really cool draft program that allows you to sign in through it. Like if you're outside, you can actually sign into it and still make your picks and everything. Because I have a draft program that goes up on the TV, and you just have it's all input. It's really nice, makes it really easy.
That's cool. So being a fantasy guy, you've been playing it for a while, and I've been playing it for a while. What's your favorite league? I mean, who do you use? Yahoo or NFL Network or?
We use NFL just because our league we try and keep really simple. There's so many different leagues out there with we're gonna draft you have to play 9 quarterbacks and get quadruple points and all these crazy rules, and with us, we keep it pretty bare bones. So NFL is really chill for us. We do, just quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, tight end, flex, defense, kicker. Just the real kind of basic package, and they've worked great for us. I mean, we don't need anything too fancy.
Yeah, we use Yahoo, and that was who they were using before I got there. So that's kind of what we've been doing. But I was just curious, because I played Yahoo leagues. I did an NFL.com league last year. Usually end up in 1 or 2 ESPN leagues every year. I don't know how that ever happens. It's I can't have them all be, from one service, so I can only have one app on my phone. I've got to have, 7 different apps on my phone to check everything. And it's like I usually, one or two of the leagues end up going by the wayside by the end of the year. So
I had to limit myself a little bit. Like, for a while there, I was like trying to get as many as possible. And, I've limited myself to like a max of 3 now. Like, I'm trying to do different things. But then, man, this last year, I took second place, and first place, all in 12-person leagues last year. So, like, now I'm like, so I made just crazy money because we're all in big money leagues. And I was just like, man, that makes me want to go jump in like 8 different ones or something.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I only usually do, of course, you're a single guy, so, it is what it is. But I've got I have the wife and the kids to worry about. I do one paid league, that's it. Everything else is just, for whatever. But, so you do 12-man leagues then?
Yeah, that's generally what we do.
Yeah, ours is 14, and I've only done a 14-man league the last few years since I've been in this league, but I've never done anything before that higher than 10. But I'll tell you what, a 14-team league, you really got to know your stuff because. But
that's why it benefits someone like you and someone like me because I know my stuff. So like when it's getting down to drafting time and I'm drafting guys, like someone like Travis Kelce or something like that who has that big upside. You know what I'm saying? Way late, as your backup tight end or something crazy. It gives you a little bit of upside because then you can just kind of store those guys away on your roster and wait for them to perform.
Exactly. And that's people people look at you funny when you grab somebody like that, but you like I always say, at a 14-team league, you need to know who the third string the third string receiver on the Cleveland Browns is. Because by the time you get to those last couple rounds, that's where you're looking is, those depth players.
And sometimes those are the guys that pay off. Like, I won last year because I had Nick Foles sitting on my bench all year. And then once he came out to play and just started blowing up, I just played him every single week and just destroyed everybody. And, that's just kind of how it goes. Last year, there were so many injuries. And, that's a huge part of fantasy football. And that's why I've been really crossing my fingers with the Chiefs every time we've been seeing them play. I've just been like, just don't let somebody go down in flames there.
Yeah, it's true. Well, they've been lucky so far in the preseason, or not preseason, but in training camp. The injuries have been minor. I mean, they've been there. Kelce, they've been real careful with him. Fisher, they've been real careful with him. Donald Stevenson, our projected starting right tackle, he was sidelined with a sprained ankle, I think is what they said he had, but nothing too serious. Bo left practice early on Sunday with some cramping, but it was hot. I can attest to that because I was there. So, but nothing too crazy. I mean, knock on the wood. Nothing too nuts. So, so talking Chiefs fantasy players. Jamaal Charles, you think he's going to be the number 1 pick universally? You think people are going to go after him? Fantasy player of the year last year?
Definitely not universally, probably. Quarterbacks have such a big draw right now. Like, I'm a guy that's always definitely gone like running back for my first 2 picks. So I'm kind of old school like that, as long as I'm picking good running backs. But like last year, it bit me in the ass because I picked up Ray Rice in one of my leagues, and not how that turned out. But quarterbacks now, you have someone like Peyton Manning who's just throwing up just insane numbers. Like, I think a lot of people are probably going to try and jump on that train, but definitely it's going to be hard not to pick him as the number 1 running back just because of the touchdown production.
Yeah, I mean, the guy ended up with 19 touchdowns last year, almost 2,000 yards from scrimmage between receiving and rushing yards. I mean, there's a reason he was a fantasy player of the year. The 5 touchdowns, 200 yards receiving against the Raiders, that definitely helped his case. But, yeah, I'm with you. I've had that argument time and time again with guys that are like, oh, you got to get a quarterback. You got to get Drew Brees or Aaron Rodgers or Peyton Manning first thing, and then you can get your running backs later. This is a quarterback league, and got it. But you can play 2 running backs. You can only play 1 quarterback. And the way that I look at it, and we'll impart a little bit of my draft strategy to you folks out there listening. I'm a firm believer if you're drafting early, you need to get one of those stud running backs. You need to get a Jamaal Charles or a LaShawn McCoy or an Adrian Peterson or I think Ben Tate in Cleveland is going to have a big year this year. One of those guys that is going to be a quote-unquote featured back that's going to get 80% of the carries for that team. Because there's so many teams that have gone to running back by committee that if you're drafted later on, you're going to be hard-pressed to find one of those guys that's going to be the featured back because they're going to be gone. You can pick up a quarterback. I'm a big fan of Matt Ryan from the Falcons for a fantasy quarterback. He's always available in the 5th or 6th round. A guy like that.
Well, that's what the thing is with quarterbacks. If you get them first, if you go quarterback first, it's excellent because you can get someone like your Peyton Manning or your Drew Brees who throws these crazy touchdown numbers. But if you're not going to do that, then it's pointless to get a quarterback all the way to, like you were saying, those late after you've picked up your running backs and your wide receivers, because the production value from someone like Matt Stafford to Matt Ryan is pretty much across the board the same.
That's true. And I think Matt Stafford's going to have a huge year this year.
He's had a huge year every year. Last year, the second half of the year, he didn't do as well, but, he's one of those guys that has big years every year, and him finally getting a number 2 wide receiver there is definitely probably going to help him quite a bit.
I agree. I agree. What do you think about Bo? He kind of hosed me last year. I had him, and
see, I strictly, generally, as a rule, try and stay away from Chiefs players because I can't take the double heartache. If I'm losing in fantasy, I at least have to have the Chiefs win, or vice versa. If the Chiefs lose and I win a couple fantasy leagues, then I'm usually okay, I'm not hanging myself. But Bo, I think they realize that they need to get more production out of him. They realize that they have a talent on their hand and that they need to get the ball in his hands more. So I'm hoping his touches go up. I hope that they get him the ball in space a little bit more because he showed that he's really done really well with yards after catch. So, some of those slants and inside little routes, hopefully get him the ball to pick up some of those extra yards, and we'll see how that goes. So hopefully maybe, too, having some tight end production this year will open him up on the outside a bit.
Yeah, I think that's kind of everybody's hope, fantasy and otherwise. What do you think about the Chiefs' defense? You think that they're, just talking strictly fantasy, that they're worth an early defense pickup, not wait until the last 2 rounds to draft a defense?
I think out of the maybe 3 different defenses you could do that with, they're one of them. Here's the thing about the Chiefs. If you take a look at last year, even after the bye week when our defense really started going downhill, our defense was still putting up good numbers because we were allowing all these points which count against you, but we were still getting, turnovers, and we were still getting, a lot of these things that count for points. So worst case scenario, even if you're getting a lot of points scored against you in fantasy, they still do well for you.
It's true.
We're going to get the sacks, we're going to get the turnovers. We just have a defense that's built for that.
Yeah. Well, what's your take on drafting a defense in fantasy? Are you because with the way I play defenses in fantasy, I'm a matchup guy.
I do too.
Unless I've got a Seattle Seahawks defense or the Chiefs defense that played real well, Niners. I'm a guy that I'll drop and pick up a new defense every week based on the matchup.
That's exactly what I do. I draft defense and kicker as my last 2 picks. Yep. I'll pick up 9 running backs before I pick up a defense, and because I just store them on my roster and wait for them to do something. Kickers and defense, I play week to week. Use my waiver wire usually to pick up who I think is the best, kicker and defense matchups depending on who they're playing.
Yeah, that's exactly how I. But if you got the opportunity to take the Chiefs or the Seahawks, I would definitely recommend it earlier rather than later.
Or once you see once it's going a little bit and you kind of see who's getting those turnovers and stuff like that, try and pick them up because you never know. No one in their right mind would have told you Chiefs defense were going to put up the numbers they did last year. So, sometimes you just get lucky and you have something like that fall in your lap where you get that defense that really blows up one year.
Yeah, it's true.
The Texans defense this year, you know, they're going to be really, like, no one will probably draft the Texans defense, but, you know, with the talent that they have on that defense, you know, that's going to be one of those people that, even though they get points scored against them, they're going to get a lot of turnovers and sacks, which turn into a lot of points in fantasy.
Biggest sleeper player this year, who do you think it's going to be? Any team?
Any team? Oof. That's kind of an on-the-spot
That's
thing there.
what I do. That's okay. What I do.
Here. You know, I mean, let's see. Man, I can't even think off the top of my head. That's a tough one to just throw on me, because I think there's a lot of people out there that are going to come in and do well. I don't think you can really count this as a sleeper, but I'll tell you what, I'm worried about what Sproles is going to do in Philly. Like that with the speed that offense has and the high octane offense that they're putting together over there with Chip Kelly, having that many guys, it's kind of like the Chiefs, where you have so much speed and so much, you know, big play possibility there with some of those guys, that Sproles coming into that place, I think he's had a couple down years. I think he's going to go back to having a big one.
Yeah, I think he's going to fit in well in that system, and I think he's definitely a guy that you don't want to miss on or wait too long on, because I think he's going to go. He's like what's his name up in Detroit, Reggie Bush. Where, you know, a lot of people overlook him because he hasn't produced a lot. But up in Detroit, he's perfect in that system and you know, has put up big numbers, you know, and so people tend to miss out on him when they could have grabbed him early on. But, you know, Chiefs-wise, I mean, obviously the big ones, Jamal Charles, Dwayne Bowe, potentially, you know, Chiefs defense. I like what you said earlier about drafting a Travis Kelce in the 8th or 9th round and just kind of sticking him on the bench and saying, yeah, let's see what this guy's got, you know, as the season progresses. You know, as a tight end, as a backup tight end, and, you know, who knows?
You know, if you follow Alex Smith, you know, he's traditionally always been quite a tight end quarterback. You know, he hasn't had that in Kansas City, obviously because of all our injuries, but he loves using the tight end. So if they can get that going, you know, you might see quite a bit of end zone work, you know, with someone like, you know, if it's, you know, Kelce or Demetrius Thomas or, you know, one of those guys that are those huge bodies, you know, if you can get him going up for the ball, then that could end up being how we get a lot. Or Fasano, like we said, he's an end zone hog. You know, we have some guys out there that are known for that kind of end zone work. So.
Yeah, I think we're in for a treat. I mean, as long as everything stays, you know, the national media is obviously down on the Chiefs. You know, this whole they're going to play not a last place schedule and all that garbage that they're spewing, and, you know, that the Chiefs lost their 3 starting offensive linemen and they didn't draft a wide receiver and all the things that the Chiefs did wrong this offseason. They're already saying the Chiefs are going to go 6-10 this year, 7-9, 5-11, whatever. I just think that the Chiefs are really going to surprise people this year. I think it's going to be another one of those seasons where they're going to come back and they're just going to say, hey, we're relevant. We've got the coach. We've got the quarterback. We've got the running back. We've got the pieces. You know, let's do it. Let's finish. That's their mantra through training camp. Let's finish. You know, they feel like they've left something unfinished on the table after that heartbreaking, you know, wild card loss in Indianapolis.
Well, they did. I mean, the whole after the bye, you know, thing, you know, it's they have to prove that they're not a fluke. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they're one of those teams that have been pretty universally bad for quite a while. So having that opening insane start of the year, you know, they have to come back in this year to say, hey, you know, that wasn't our schedule. That wasn't, you know, that we have a lot of talent on this team. And I think people know that we have spots of talent. They know that, you know, we have pass rushers. They know we have Jamal Charles, but they don't know about, you know, some of the other guys we have on here. And Alex Smith still gets a lot of hate and, you know, unneededly. But I think we're going to, if we stay healthy, the problem is I'm worried we don't have the depth that we've had. But if we can stay healthy, I think we have the right guys in place for us to at least, you know, be playoffs again. So.
Well, you know, you say if we stay healthy and about depth, I think we're better in a better situation depth-wise this year than we were last year, especially on defense. Well, not the secondary. The secondary makes me nervous. But you talk about like pass rushers, you talk about defensive line. Those two areas that kind of struggled with injuries last year, I think depth-wise that they're good this year.
Sure. I mean, that position, pass rushing, defensive line, I think we're in a lot better position. I'm just worried about, you know, we haven't seen any production out of the wide receiver, so it's really hard to say. Yeah. I mean, if we don't even have a number 2 wide receiver, who's our number 3 wide receiver? You know, so it's really tricky for us to say, okay, we have a lot of people that we know can have an upside, but have we seen that upside? No. And, you know, quarterback's another one. You know, if Alex Smith goes down, but, you know, I really don't think we have anybody that's going to come in there and be amazing, you know, that's going to be able to handle the load that Alex Smith does. You know, but, you know, like I said, it's something you have to see, and one of the things I'm excited to watch preseason is see, okay, maybe let's let these, I want to get these guys to impress me. I want to not have that feeling. I want to see what some of these guys can do.
And that preseason game, it's just 9 days away from right now as we record this on Tuesday night, and we're going to have a lot more on that next week as we preview the Chiefs' first preseason matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. Preseason week 1 of the 2014 season. We're here, brother. I mean, we've arrived finally. So that's probably just about enough Chiefs for tonight. Out there in the Pro Football Central Radio Network, this is Chiefs Central Radio. If you're listening to us on iTunes, make sure you give us a good rating, give us a thumbs up on iTunes, recommend us to your friends. Same thing on Stitcher Radio, where we're available. If you're on Stitcher, go ahead and give us a thumbs up and write us a good review to make our show appear more readily available for other listeners. And, of course, if you're just listening on ProFootballCentral.com, we appreciate it. Make sure you give us a shout-out on Twitter. Make sure you're following the show. It's at Radio Chiefs. Make sure you're following Chris, is at Gully as Duff, and me, JF Seidel, all on Twitter. And that's where you can kind of interact with us the most. Next week's show, we preview Chiefs Bengals preseason week 1. We're also going to be talking about what our favorite game in history is. So definitely be thinking about that, along with all your latest Chiefs news and going on at camp. For Chris Kilduff up in the Pacific Northwest, I'm Jason Seibel down in San Antonio, Texas, saying keep it red, keep it yellow. Good night, keep it Chiefs.